Welcome to Optimal Health Weekly with your host, Steve Adams. This podcast is for highly driven professionals, CEOs, and entrepreneurs who know health is the first wealth. Join us each week for a mix of expert interviews and solo episodes on health topics relevant to your busy life. Let's elevate your health together.
Welcome to the Tiger Optimal Weekly podcast on where you can learn about how to achieve optimal health. And today we have as our guest, Tiger's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Matthew McNamee. Dr. Matt, welcome to the Tiger Medical Optimal Health podcast.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Matt, what we're going to talk about today is the idea that most people, if I were to draw a circle and the person's in the circle, our healthcare system is built around a treatment model rather than, getting to the root cause. And so the idea would be then our current healthcare model is top down, meaning they're going to, through some algorithm, diagnose and then treat, usually with medication. The model that we use at Tiger Medical on a very simplistic basis, and you can expand on it, is we come from the bottom up because we want to look at the underlying mechanism or the root cause of why something's happening, address it so that the top-down approach, which is doing nothing more than managing a disease versus potentially reversing or improving life quality, that's the differentiation and approach. And in so doing, you and Dr. Kessler work on like a rubric where you're looking at the cellular level of someone's health, because it's at that level where you can address these underlying mechanisms that will then work its way back up into how they feel. You want to add to that or just kind of give an overview first on that, and then let's talk more of the specific pathways.
Sure. When we're digging into the underlying contributing factors that are, contributing to a certain health state, typically the dysfunction or disease, right? There are, there's a handful of things that can impact it, outside of, or I should say, in addition to your genetics, the microbiome in your body,
yep.
All the microbes, all the things that you're exposed to. You can take almost any condition, looking at that information coupled with some fundamentals with cellular health to look at the things that are contributing to the dysfunction or disease. So, so for cellular health, there's three main aspects that a cell needs to, to have to be healthy and thriving. It needs adequate energy. It needs to protect itself from damage, and it needs the optimal environment, to live in.
Yep. So in the damage side, are you talking inflammation and oxidative stress? Yep. Okay. And then the energy is the mitochondrial function of optimizing that, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And then what's usually involved in environment? Kind of break that down a little bit for people.
Environment's pretty simple. It's proper hydration. All cells need adequate water to function, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
You need an optimal pH,
Yep.
So not too acidic, not too alkaline. The cells need to basically have communication with other cells. So, things like neurotransmitters and hormones, it sends signaling. They need to be stimulated. They need rest, just like the human does, right? So you need exercise, you need sleep,
Yep.
And then they also, cells need a purpose, right? So one example for a cell that loses its purpose is something like cancer.
Yeah, interesting.
The rest of the cells have purpose, right? So
how do we put purpose in cells?
Oh, they're all unique. Skin cells do certain, functions. Hair cells have their own function. Heart cells have their own function.
I see.
Yeah, so they're all unique in that sense.
Yeah, you're not talking like a mindset around purpose. You're talking they have specific physiological purpose, right? Yep.
Yeah, it's not a mind. It's literally what it's designed for.
Yeah, and does toxin burden land in that environmental, leg of the stool there, in terms of environment, or is that another kind of of that affects cellular health?
We look at that as a little bit more of a protection aspect because most of the harmful environmental, things that we're exposed to damage the cells one way or another. They either do it through, oxidative stress, which is like rust in the body, which creates inflammation.
Yep.
So that's a little bit more on the protection side.
It's in one of the three legs of the stool. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right.
Protection side. So
let me ask you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say anything that you need protection from damage. So it could be honestly even just an infection or a systemic kind of stealth infection that's kind of hidden. It could be your immune system attacking your cells. That's another form of damage.
Got it. And so this approach that you just described, is that kind of every time you get a new case, are you kind of looking at them through that lens of all of those things in a very, I hate the word holistic because people think crunchy tree bark, that kind of thing. And no, what you're doing is really holistic, real medicine here. Is that kind of the rubric from which you view cases?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the testing that I do looks at, most of these aspects in one way or another.
Yep.
From an energetic standpoint, I mean, some people already have, anybody that's getting their blood work done from a primary care provider will get some basic information on that. Mm-hmm. Things like where some of their lipid levels are at, like a standard lipid panel can tell us, some information there, glucose levels. But we dig deeper, right? So we look at a lot more of the things that give us a better picture of what's going on from that standpoint.
Yeah, and tell me, I seem to have a lot of conversations with individuals who come to us because I wouldn't call it desperate. Sometimes they are. They've been to multiple providers. They've even gone to someone who is a dietitian. They may have gone to a chiropractor. And by the way, when I say what I'm going to say here, I'm not disparaging any of those. They're all valuable to people. But they've gone to several of those places. They've gone to a traditional doctor and they just are not seeing help. And so when they come to us, they've seen 3, 4, 5 different people. And I have watched you over the last 4 years consistently get good results and heal people despite, them not having success elsewhere. And I've seen Dr. Kessler do the same thing. And is that because of that rubric you're using that they're not using?
Yeah, I think so. It's unique because it looks at, it could be 20, 30, 40, sometimes different things that are contributing to one condition.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at brain health and such, or more, right?
Right.
And most of the standard, model in medicine is, fitting certain criteria. And then most oftenly it's, prescription or something to manage that condition. It's, if you take the medication away, the condition's still there, right? And it's not optimizing health, and that's what we're looking at. So what are all the things that we need? Everyone's got their unique weak links, if you will, with their health that we teach out in the process. But utilizing these is pretty fundamental for most people that practice like a functional medicine model.
Yep. Well, and I think what I have shared with people, because some people have worked with a functional doctor and they've started down that path, but for whatever reason, it didn't work for them. And I think what the difference is, I've tried to explain this in a very respectful way, but I think that what's unique is you and Dr. Kessler have so many years of clinical practice. It has become more art than science. Now it's real science, but there is an artistry to connecting the dots, isn't there? Because that's true in a lot of other professions.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like that. I feel like, I'm sure for Dr. Kessler too, is like having the type of analytical brains that we have. We constantly search. Since I've been on the planet, like I was that kind of a asking why. And that's what I think with every individual that I work with. Why is this going on? What about this? Why this? Why this? So
Yep.
I think that's, that's part of the process. And sure, over the years, the more practice we get, the better we get, the more things we see, and the better we are able to, help people. Most of the people that I shouldn't say most, but I would say, a third to probably half of the people that I've seen over the last 15 years have seen all kinds of specialists. Know how to figure out what's going on, right? And then, some of the time it's just written off, it's all in your head, and they're given an antidepressant or something, so.
Which is gaslighting.
Yeah, in a sense.
Medical, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and I have, I'm thinking I've got a patient that I've been working with for half a year or so, and I actually helped her find, because she's located in the Midwest. I helped her find a local, or I gave her some options for some local functional medicine practitioners, and she started there, but we were able to. She ultimately transitioned to me just because, I feel like they kind of had, and I practiced this way too. When I was relatively new, was kind of like a certain kind of subspecialty in how you practice. Some people just treat the gut. Some people just treat, let's say hormones. And I did a lot of hormones and neurotransmitter optimization when I was new. But I mean, that was kind of the same approach that she got, where hormones didn't optimize, didn't do anything to her condition.
Got it.
We had to dig in, beyond that to see what was contributing to that. And it doesn't always happen, definitely doesn't always happen in the first set of tests. Sometimes even the second set of tests that we do might even take 3 attempts just to see what's really, contributing to all this. So,
so what I'm hearing you say is, like, Warren Buffett has this funny quote where he said, if you're a hammer, you see everything as a nail. So what you're saying is some people have this preconceived, this is where I start all the time, rather than actually listening to what the patient's saying and be completely open and then dig. That's really what you're saying.
Totally. I mean, you could take all kinds of conditions, right? You could take someone, fatigue's probably one of the more common complaints that primary care physicians see, and if you're looking at, if you have background in hormones and even neurotransmitters, you can go, oh yeah, this can play a role, let's look at all that stuff. But if you optimize or just address that and they're not getting better, there's something else going on, right? So there's that cause fatigue. So outside of the basic fundamentals that any primary care practitioner is going to check the box on, there's some other things that there's some other areas that are not commonly looked at or addressed in the conventional medical model.
Right. One of the things I see, Matt, when in the front end, as I am introducing people to our model, is that because the people that come to us are smart, they're educated, they know how to research things, and they go out and they start trying this, and this, and they're frustrated because they listen to there's biohacker of the day kind of thing. There's so many of those out there, and they're all given because this is how I came to you. I was biohacking for about 3 years. And I was doing 17 things, and none of it was helping me. And I started asking the question, why am I doing all these things? I don't even know if they're helping me. And kind of talk to that person who may be doing that right now, how working with you would be different. How you could encourage them to step into Tiger Medical, and how would they benefit from that? From a guesswork that they're doing now to what you would do.
Yeah, I'm not sure, what sort of access individuals have, if any, to functional medicine testing.
Right.
So There's a lot of, people, there's these days you can get blood work. There's a workaround without seeing a doctor, right? But I don't know if that's an option. And that's where we find a lot of the information is in those tests. We get a tremendous amount of info from blood work, right? We do real comprehensive blood work, but there's a lot of missing links that without testing, myself included, I just did a test, a couple months ago, and I was really surprised on one of the markers, but it all made sense with some of the things that I was experiencing. And I went, wow, so,
yeah.
So it's, and I think myself, Dr. Kessler, and other people that have practiced for a little bit, you can get some strong inclinations might be going on without testing, but it's important to get the data so you can assess and reassess if need be, and track.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I hear you saying is, you as the consumer are not trained in medicine. And you might even be like a trained clinical person, but if you're not working with those types of testing, because I know my primary care doc, who is one of my best friends, I showed him the lab work that you did, and he said, I'm not really able to look at that and do stuff with it clinically because I wasn't trained with this type of information. And that's certainly no knock on him. That's just the model he was trained out of. But, I learned it myself. I've seen it over and over again with our clients. Like, they're guessing, they don't know. And what you do is you eliminate the guesswork, and what they're really buying is certainty in the sense of I'm going to be able to work with a trained clinician in this model with objective data. And from there, we're going to be able to make very specific changes because we're taking action on things that are facts, not fiction. Steve Adams here from Tiger Medical Institute. Do you ever feel like you're operating at less than 100%? It's time to take control of your health with the True Health Assessment by Tiger Medical. Get comprehensive blood screening to identify hidden health risks before it's too late. Our team of Mayo-trained and naturopathic physicians will analyze your results and provide a custom plan to optimize your well-being. Don't let underlying issues hold you back. Invest in your most valuable asset, your health. For the price of a daily chai latte from Starbucks, you can gain priceless insights and a roadmap to peak performance. Visit truehealthassessment.com, truehealthassessment.com today, and unlock your full potential. Because when you feel your best, you can achieve your best. That's true health.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just, a real simplistic thought would be, using a magnifying glass instead of, if you need glasses or something like that, you're not gonna, kind of you don't get to dig in too deep,
Yeah, no, that's good. The story you've always told that I think is interesting is how when you were in Silicon Valley, you were finding people coming to you that had the profile of someone much older and they were very young. Can you tell that story again? And, why our modern culture is so hard on our body, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I would say it was about 13 years ago. I was seeing the wife of a 2B patient, and she wanted him to come in because he wasn't feeling well, and I think he was probably 30. I don't know if he was 30-ish, upper 20s. But I, the initial panel, the blood panel that I did on him, showed some markers like his testosterone and his stress, his cortisol levels were, off the charts, and it was impacting his sleep, and but his testosterone was about as low as some of the 90-year-olds that aren't. Yeah, it was a huge awakening, like, holy smokes, because, if you look at the mechanism behind that, it's like our bodies, just from our ancestors, we're still operating that way genetically, right? We haven't adapted to the last 100, 200 years of all the radical change, right? So, when we're stressed, our body says, slow the roll, right? Slow your metabolism. Let's hang on to all the fat stores that we can. We don't know when we're going to get food. We don't know how long it's going to take to make it through this. And one of the things that it does to do that is shut down reproduction. It does it both in men and women. So some women might relate and go, oh yeah, I missed a cycle when I'm stressed, right?
Yep. Or the libido's gone. Yeah.
So, that was probably playing a significant role, at least in his testosterone levels, but he was working an absurd amount of, days straight and lots of long days. And at his desk, he was he worked for Google, and high stress. They're not getting up and moving much, working late hours and reaching for, whatever kind of junk foods to kind of get them by, and then not sleep super hot and just kind of, repeat. So,
wow. And massively accelerating the aging process in the meat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all those that I just mentioned will negatively impact your hormones, testosterone, things like that. So,
yeah, because it's all linked. And so what's interesting is that you can reverse all that just by reverse engineering the causes and changing the environment, right? The habits, the lifestyle.
We're willing to do it, right? So
yeah.
With him, I think his wife might have, pulled him in more than anything. And I'm sure it's been a while since I've reviewed that case, but, I think he did some of this stuff, but, not everyone's in that place right off the bat to change a lot. Yeah, it does. It takes, work to live as what our genes expect and as our body's designed to, and how we eat. Right. So,
right.
We're every day. It's like swimming upstream in a river, and it's gotten worse since the advent of the internet. I think there was a study, that people since that year, I think that was in the 90s, that they, humans across the planet were sleeping like an hour and some change less per night.
Wow.
Than historically, right? So, I mean, that's a huge impact right there. That's aside from looking at the screens and goes with it. So
the one last thing I want to talk about here on this podcast is comment on the idea. And this was originally proposed by Dr. Henry Lodge, who is since deceased. He was the head of Columbia Medical University's medical school. And he talked about when you address physiological imbalances from a root cause basis and you improve health habits and lifestyle, you can become functionally younger in the next year. And for a lot of people, they can repeat that for a few years and then flatten out the aging curve if they can maintain that, versus this direct straight line from 50 to 75, which most people are on, where they just get worse and worse. They're chronically ill for a decade, then they die. He proposed that you can kind of flatten that curve out and feel like your 50s for 20, 30 years, and then, body gives out and you die. Now he goes, obviously people can get diseases and die, but what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for the better odds. Do you believe that? And how can that encourage people to take action?
Oh, I 100% believe it. I mean, there's a significant amount of data in the scientific literature that talks about basically chronological age, how many years we've been on the planet versus, our cellular age, how old our cells are. And that's when we're not, putting in adequate or proper fuel in the body, and we're not, getting adequate sleep and eating and doing all the other lifestyle stuff. It will negatively impact that, So, there's this whole, process. They call it meta-inflammation, which has to do with metabolic inflammation, and that's what a lot of the conditions that people have these days are metabolic, related. So things like, insulin resistance, blood sugar imbalances, things like that. And that drives, they all, for simplistic, terms, I've even seen it called inflammaging. So yeah, I mean, there's even companies that I work with that we can test that, right, to assess age, and then there's things that we can do to intervene and try to, lower the biological age, and it is very doable. I mean, even the company I work with works with, Yale and Harvard, and I think Cambridge, and they're doing a lot of studies with some of these different biological clocks, different ways of assessing cellular age, and there's a lot of data out there on what we can do to lower it.
Well, with me, one of the things I wish we had done when you worked with me in 2019, that was the precursor year to Tiger forming. And if you remember when we did the cellular age, it was down to like the early 20s. Do you remember that? And we didn't test on the front end, so we didn't know where I started. But I guarantee it wasn't that, because I was 55 and I felt horrible. And you one of your funny quotes that I quote all the time when I'm talking to people about joining Tiger is, my doctor, my primary, said that he couldn't find anything wrong. And you told me I had like 30 things wrong. It was really funny. And I don't remember if it was 30 or 20, but it doesn't matter. It was like a lot. And so we went through that process, and you restored my mood problems. My anxiety was gone. My reflux was healed. I went from one bowel movement every 3 days to 2 a day. So all of that GI function was restored. I had pain chronically from, I thought, playing football, but it wasn't. My C-reactive protein was like a 6 or 7. Now it's like under 1. And so you were able to do all of that. And at the end, we ran that, I think it was the telomere test. Back then we were doing that, and it showed kind of an age band of 20s, and it was really amazing. But it was at least, I was probably at least my age. So it went from 55 to that, and I felt the difference too. So it kind of correlated with it. That's what you're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're right. It was the telomeres, and that's one way to assess, biological age. Mothers that they've come up with over the last, since then, basically, that are a little even more accurate.
Sure. Well, for me, it was just the peace of mind knowing that whatever the accuracy was, we had clearly stopped the accelerated aging. And, I was concerned because my dad and 2 siblings, my dad had multiple heart attacks in his 50s, and his brothers both died in their 40s and 50s. And that's the age I was. And I was concerned about that. And we learned genetically that I have not good cardio genes. And you had warned me that, inflammation is not good because that can cause those to express. So we were able to attack that. And now today, like we did a scan of my heart, and I have almost no blockage. And so it's a completely different outcome coming from the same family tree. And it just shows that you can change the narrative on how your genes express. Yeah,
100%. It's I've seen this, past probably 15 years. It was, and it might have even been lower than this, but I think it was like, back then it was 75, percent of your outcome, right? The phenotype would be, due to the environment. 25% is genetics, kind of like that's the way it is.
Yeah, white flag. Yep.
Now the data probably pushes maybe 5 to 10% is genetics.
Wow.
Environment. Yeah, they've done studies with twins in different environments. Same, and basically showing, radically different outcomes.
Wow. So a 3 to 5 fold decrease in gene dominance versus the other. Wow, that's incredible. Well, we are out of time. Dr. Matt, thank you for joining the Tiger Optimal Health podcast this week.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Steve Adams here from Tiger Medical Institute, talking about the True Health Assessment. What if you could safeguard not just your health, but the well-being of your entire family? With the True Health Assessment from Tiger Medical, you can. Our comprehensive blood screening identifies hidden risks before they become major issues. Our elite team of Mayo Clinic trained and naturopathic physicians then create a customized plan to optimize your health for years to come. When you prioritize your wellness, you ensure you can be fully present for the people you love most. Don't let preventable issues cut that time short. For less than the cost of a daily latte, you can gain peace of mind and a clear path to sustained vitality. Protect your future and your family's future with True Health Assessment from Tiger Medical at thetruehealthassessment.com. Again, that's at thetruehealthassessment.com.